Listen, I'm going to speak to you today not just from the heart, but from the truth that we can't run from. We live in a world where manipulation, pride, and selfishness have wreaked havoc in the lives of so many. But I want you to understand one thing. God has seen everything. Narcissism is a dangerous force that can leave lasting scars on anyone it touches. But it is especially devastating when it targets women. Narcissistic behavior is often disguised by charm, intelligence, and an air of confidence, creating an illusion of control and power. For those caught in the trap, the manipulation can be suffocating, and the damage it causes runs deeper than most people can see. Narcissistic individuals often prey on the vulnerability of others, especially women, exploiting their kindness, empathy, and desire for connection. What they offer in return is a twisted reflection of love, something that is conditional, fleeting, and self-serving. The pain caused by narcissistic abuse is difficult to articulate because it isn't always visible in the way that physical harm is. It is a psychological and emotional wound, often leaving the victim feeling isolated, confused, and lost. Narcissists are masters of gaslighting, making their victims question their own reality. The emotional toll can lead to depression, anxiety, and a deep sense of self-doubt. Women who find themselves in narcissistic relationships may begin to question their worth, their identity, and their value. They are made to feel that the love and validation they so desperately seek must come from the narcissist, who in reality is only interested in feeding their own ego. Women are made to feel small and insignificant. Their emotions are dismissed as irrelevant, their needs ignored, and their opinions are trampled underfoot. The narcissist world revolves around their own desires, and any attempt to establish healthy boundaries or communicate their needs is met with resistance, manipulation, or outright cruelty. Over time, the woman begins to lose herself. She starts to believe that she is nothing without the narcissist's approval. Her voice becomes quieter, her self-esteem withers, and her sense of self-worth erodes. It is heartbreaking to witness this kind of transformation because we know that the potential for greatness lies within every woman. We know that women are strong, resilient, and capable of achieving incredible things, but narcissistic abuse makes them forget this. It makes them believe that their value is tied to someone else's approval, that their worth can only be validated through the eyes of a manipulator who only seeks to control and dominate. And this is where the true tragedy lies, the loss of self. Narcissists take away not just a woman's confidence, but her sense of agency. They warp her perception of reality until she can no longer trust herself. She feels as if she is always walking on eggshells, unsure of what is real and what is a creation of the narcissist's manipulations. The woman begins to feel disconnected from the world around her and even from herself. She becomes so entwined in the narcissist web that she loses sight of who she truly is. This kind of abuse often goes unnoticed by the outside world. Because it is emotional and psychological, it can be difficult for others to see. Women who are in these relationships often appear fine on the surface. They may even continue to perform their daily duties with great skill and grace, hiding their pain behind a mask of normalcy. But inside they are in turmoil. They feel trapped, helpless, and powerless. Narcissists are skilled at isolating their victims, cutting them off from supportive friends and family, so the woman feels she has no one to turn to. And even when women do reach out, the response from others may not always be supportive. Society often blames the victim, asking, "Why did you stay? What did you do to provoke this?" These questions place the responsibility on the woman, furthering the belief that she is somehow at fault. This in turn deepens the sense of shame and guilt she already feels. She is made to feel as if she is the cause of her own suffering, which only strengthens the narcissist's grip on her. But we must recognize this for what it is: manipulation. The narcissist seeks to break the woman's spirit, to make her believe that she is worthless without them. They want to be the sole source of validation in her life so that she remains under their control. The abuse isn't about love. It's about power and control. It's about breaking down the woman's sense of self in order to rebuild it in their own image, one that serves only the narcissist's interests. For too long, this kind of emotional abuse has been ignored or overlooked. We have been taught to believe that if someone isn't physically violent, then their actions are not as damaging. But the truth is, emotional abuse can be just as harmful, if not more so, than physical abuse. The scars may not be visible, but they run deep. The wounds are internal, leaving lasting damage to the woman's self-esteem and mental health. It is time to acknowledge the pain that narcissism inflicts on women. It is time to validate the experiences of those who have been manipulated and abused. Women must be empowered to recognize the signs of narcissistic abuse and to understand that it is not their fault. They are not to blame for the actions of someone who sought to control and exploit them. They must also understand that there is hope for healing. They are not defined by the narcissist's lies and manipulations. They are worthy of love, respect, and dignity. We must support these women, offer them resources, and stand by their side as they reclaim their power. The journey to healing will not be easy, but it is a journey worth taking, and it is a journey that will ultimately lead to strength, resilience, and the restoration of self. In the end, we must remember that God sees all. He sees the suffering, the manipulation, and the pain, and he will bring justice to those who seek to break others down for their own gain. No act of cruelty goes unnoticed. No tear shed in silence is forgotten. The time will come when the narcissist's actions will be judged, and the woman will rise again, stronger, wiser, and whole. In a world where injustice seems to prevail, where those who do wrong often go unpunished, it is easy to feel as though no one sees the suffering, no one understands the depth of the pain, and no one will intervene. But the truth that we must hold on to is this: God sees everything, every single moment of manipulation, every tear shed in silence, every unjust action that has been inflicted upon the innocent does not go unnoticed by God. In fact, his justice is far greater than any human justice system could ever be. He is the ultimate judge, the one whose perspective is not limited by time, space, or human error. His judgment is flawless, and his actions are righteous. God does not turn a blind eye to the suffering of the oppressed, and especially not to the suffering of women who have been victimized by narcissistic abuse. He sees the emotional and psychological harm inflicted by those who seek to dominate, control, and manipulate for their own selfish desires. God understands the deep pain of someone who has been lied to, gaslighted, and made to feel worthless by someone who has no regard for their humanity. He knows the turmoil that rages in the heart of someone trapped in an unhealthy relationship, where the emotional toll is so great that it leaves them questioning their own reality. But God's justice is coming. It is not a matter of if, but when. There is no such thing as a perfect escape from accountability in the eyes of the Lord. In the book of Psalms, we are reminded that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. This is the essence of divine justice. While we may not always see immediate retribution in our world, rest assured God will make things right in his perfect timing. There is no act of cruelty, no manipulation, no abuse, no matter how cleverly disguised, that escapes God's all-seeing eye. His justice is not only about retribution, but also about restoration. When someone abuses another, they may seem to get away with it for a time, but God is not unaware. He does not condone injustice, and he will bring his judgment to pass. This judgment is not just a matter of punishing the wrongdoers, but also of restoring what was broken. When someone takes something precious from another, whether it is self-worth, dignity, or a sense of security, God is in the process of restoring those things. His justice includes not only punishing the one who has done wrong, but also healing the wounds that were inflicted on the victim. It's a process of both correction and restoration, bringing balance to a world that too often tilts toward injustice. One of the most powerful aspects of God's justice is that it is not bound by human standards. In this world, it can sometimes feel like the narcissist, the manipulator, the abuser escapes punishment or receives only a fraction of the consequences they deserve. But divine justice is different. God's judgment is final, unwavering, and perfect. He sees every lie, every selfish act, and every attempt to control another person. The narcissist may thrive for a time, manipulating and abusing others for their own benefit, but the day of reckoning is coming. We often want justice to come quickly, especially when we are suffering. We want to see immediate results, but God's timing is not like ours. He works in ways that we may not always understand, and sometimes his plan involves a season of waiting. This doesn't mean that justice won't come. It just means that God's justice is part of a bigger picture, one that transcends our limited understanding. We must trust in the process, knowing that God's plans are always for our good, and that he will, in his time, bring justice to those who have caused harm. For the person who has endured narcissistic abuse, the idea that judgment is coming can be both a comfort and a challenge. It is a comfort because it assures them that the suffering they have endured is not meaningless. It tells them that their pain has been witnessed, that their worth has not been diminished, and that the wrongdoers will eventually face consequences for what they've done. It gives hope that no matter how long they have endured, justice will prevail. No one can escape the truth, and God will make sure that justice is served in the end. However, it is also a challenge. In the meantime, while judgment is delayed, the victim must navigate their healing journey, often in the face of lingering emotional scars. The desire for immediate retribution or closure can make it difficult to move forward. But here's the truth. God's justice is the ultimate closure. While earthly justice may be delayed or distorted, God's justice is always fair, always true, and always timely. It will come when the time is right, and no one will be able to stand in the way of it. In the meantime, it is essential for those who have been harmed by narcissistic behavior to remember that they are not alone. God is with them, walking beside them every step of the way. His justice is not only something to look forward to in the future, it is a present reality. It is the assurance that they are not forgotten, that they are seen, and that their pain matters. His justice will provide healing, restoration, and peace that surpasses all understanding. It may not come in the form we expect, but it will come. God's judgment is coming, and with it, a restoration of what was lost, a healing of what was broken, and a triumph over the darkness that narcissism seeks to impose. In the face of narcissistic abuse, it is easy to lose sight of one's own power and strength. The narcissist is a master of control and manipulation, and the victim often feels helpless, stripped of their voice, their identity, and their autonomy. But it is crucial to remember that this is not the end of the story. The truth is that every woman has within her the incredible ability to rise above the pain, to reclaim her life, and to rediscover her worth. The process of healing from narcissistic abuse is not easy, but it is possible, and it begins with recognizing and embracing the inherent strength that lies within. Women are resilient by nature, often possessing a deep well of courage, wisdom, and emotional strength that allows them to endure even the harshest of circumstances. It may take time, but eventually the spirit that was once battered and bruised by manipulation and deceit can find its way back to peace. Healing begins when women refuse to let their circumstances define them. They must come to the realization that the abuse they endured does not reflect who they are, nor does it dictate their future. The narcissist actions may have affected their self-esteem, but those wounds are not permanent. The power to heal, to grow, and to thrive lies within them. One of the first steps in this journey of reclaiming strength is recognizing the importance of self-love and self-worth. Narcissists thrive on making their victims feel unworthy, insignificant, and powerless. They prey on insecurities, twisting words and actions to reinforce the idea that the victim is nothing without them. But the truth is that women are valuable beyond measure. No one, not a narcissist or anyone else, has the right to define their worth. Their worth is intrinsic, a reflection of who they are, not based on the approval or validation of another person. Part of healing involves learning to love oneself again, to silence the voice of the narcissist that has echoed in the mind for so long. This process is not instantaneous. It takes time, patience, and a lot of courage. But the first step is understanding that self-love is not selfish. It is necessary. It is not an act of arrogance, but rather an act of reclaiming what was lost. Women must remember that they deserve peace, respect, and joy. They are worthy of relationships that lift them up rather than tear them down. As part of this journey, it is essential to surround oneself with a supportive community. Narcissists isolate their victims, creating a bubble of control where the victim feels alone, vulnerable, and cut off from the outside world. Rebuilding after narcissistic abuse requires reconnecting with friends, family, and other supportive individuals who remind the woman of who she truly is. Sometimes this means letting go of relationships that no longer serve her well, even if it means losing people who were once close. It also means opening up to new connections with people who offer unconditional support and acceptance. In these relationships, the woman can begin to rediscover what healthy, loving connections look like. She can be reminded that she is not alone, that there are people who care for her and value her for who she is, not for what she can give or how she can serve them. Additionally, healing from narcissistic abuse requires setting boundaries and learning how to enforce them. Narcissists are skilled at pushing boundaries, ignoring them, or using manipulation to get their way. The woman who has been caught in this cycle must learn to protect herself by setting clear boundaries that honor her needs and desires. This is not an easy task, especially for someone who has been conditioned to put others first or to be afraid of confrontation. But boundaries are essential for emotional and mental health. They are not walls to shut others out. They are guidelines that preserve respect, autonomy, and dignity. Once a woman understands the importance of setting and maintaining healthy boundaries, she takes back control of her life and begins to regain her sense of self. The road to healing also involves letting go of the past. It can be incredibly difficult to release the anger, frustration, and pain pain caused by narcissistic abuse. But in order to move forward, the woman must acknowledge the hurt and then consciously choose to release it. Holding on to resentment and bitterness only continues to give the narcissist power over her life. Forgiveness does not mean condoning the narcissist's behavior or excusing the harm they caused. It simply means letting go of the emotional burden, allowing the woman to reclaim her peace and energy. Forgiveness is a powerful act of liberation. It frees the victim from the hold that the narcissist has on her life. As women begin to heal, they also begin to rediscover their passions, their purpose, and their vision for the future. Narcissistic abuse often leaves a woman feeling lost, unsure of who she is or what she wants. But healing provides an opportunity for a fresh start. The woman can reconnect with the things that once brought her joy, the activities and dreams that the narcissist may have tried to diminish or suppress. She can explore new opportunities, new paths, and new possibilities. Through this process of rediscovery, she rebuilds her identity and reclaims her life. The process of empowerment is not linear, and there will be days when the woman feels weak or discouraged. But the key is to keep moving forward, to continue taking steps toward healing, no matter how small they may seem. In time, she will emerge stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. The scars of narcissistic abuse may never fully disappear, but they will no longer define her. They will become symbols of the strength, perseverance, and courage that allowed her to overcome the darkness and step into the light. Ultimately, every woman has the power to rise above the hurt, the manipulation, and the control. She has the power to reclaim her life, to rebuild her confidence, and to live the life she deserves. The narcissist may have tried to break her, but the truth is this: she is unbreakable. The strength that lies within her is far greater than anything the narcissist could ever hope to diminish. And once she taps into that strength, there is nothing that can stop her. The journey may be difficult, but the destination is worth it. A life filled with peace, empowerment, and a deep sense of self-worth. Accountability is one of the most vital components of growth and healing. It is often overlooked or ignored by those who perpetrate harm, particularly narcissists who manipulate and exploit others. For a narcissist, accountability is a foreign concept, anathema to their inflated sense of self and their need to maintain control. They rarely acknowledge the damage they've done, often twisting the narrative to paint themselves as the victim, leaving the real victim questioning their own experiences. However, accountability is crucial not only for the perpetrator, but also for the healing of the victim and the restoration of balance. For those who have experienced narcissistic abuse, the idea of accountability can feel like a distant hope. The narcissist may never admit to their wrongdoings, nor may they ever recognize the pain they've caused. This is why, for the victim, accountability must start within themselves. The first and most important step in reclaiming control is acknowledging the abuse and recognizing that it was never their fault. Narcissists have a remarkable ability to make their victims feel as though they somehow deserved the mistreatment, that they were somehow the cause of the narcissist's behavior. They use gaslighting, manipulation, and deceit to blur the lines between right and wrong, leaving the victim doubting their own reality. But the truth is this: the victim is never to blame for the abuse they've endured. They are not responsible for the actions of another person, no matter how convincing the narcissist's narrative may be. Once this realization is embraced, the healing process begins, and it is then that accountability begins to shift toward the narcissist. Narcissists must be held accountable for their actions, and this is where justice plays a crucial role. Accountability means acknowledging the harm that has been done, accepting the consequences, and making a commitment to change. Unfortunately, narcissists rarely take this step, as their egos often prevent them from seeing the damage they've caused. They view any form of accountability as an attack on their fragile self-image and will go to great lengths to avoid it. But the absence of accountability does not mean that justice will not be served. For the victim, this may be the hardest part. The desire for the narcissist to apologize, to take responsibility, or to make amends is natural. It is human to want closure and to seek validation for the pain experienced. But it is essential to understand that true accountability comes not from the narcissist, but from the process of healing and self-restoration. The victim must recognize that they may never receive the apology they deserve, and they must release the expectation that the narcissist will take responsibility. The narcissist may never face the consequences of their actions, but the victim has the power to heal and reclaim their life regardless. Holding the narcissist accountable does not mean waiting for them to acknowledge their wrongs. It means moving forward and taking ownership of one's own life and emotional well-being. Accountability for the narcissist is not just about punishment or retribution. It is about growth and change. For anyone to grow, they must face the reality of their actions and be willing to accept responsibility for them. A narcissist who refuses to acknowledge their behavior will remain stagnant in their toxicity. But for those who are genuinely willing to change, accountability is the first step in a process of transformation. This process involves looking inward, being brutally honest with oneself, and understanding the impact one's actions have on others. It requires humility, something that is difficult for a narcissist to embrace, but is essential for personal growth. A narcissist may not seek accountability on their own, but there are opportunities, both natural and divine, that will bring them face to face with the consequences of their actions. It may not happen in the time frame or manner that one would hope, but accountability will eventually come. For the victim, it's important to remember that healing and empowerment come from within. Holding oneself accountable for allowing the abuse to continue, for enabling toxic behavior, is part of the process of moving on. This is not about self-blame, but about recognizing the power to break free, the ability to set boundaries, to leave the toxic environment, and to reclaim one's voice is a direct result of the accountability to oneself. The victim's healing is not contingent on the narcissist's acknowledgement of wrongdoing, but on their own recognition that they deserve better and that they have the strength to rise above the hurt. They must hold themselves accountable for taking the necessary steps toward healing, whether it's seeking therapy, setting boundaries, or simply choosing to walk away from the relationship that is doing them harm. Each decision made in favor of healing is an act of self-accountability, and it is this kind of accountability that ultimately leads to freedom. It is also important to understand that accountability is not a one-time act. It is an ongoing process. The narcissist may refuse to face the truth, but the victim must continually hold themselves accountable for their own healing. Accountability means checking in with oneself, ensuring that boundaries are maintained and that the person is still on the path to self-love and growth. It requires ongoing vigilance, self-reflection, and a commitment to staying true to one's own needs and values. It is easy to fall back into old patterns, especially when a narcissist tries to worm their way back into the victim's life. But accountability means staying strong, remembering one's worth, and not allowing the cycle of manipulation to start again. The healing process also involves holding others accountable for their actions. Narcissists often surround themselves with enablers, people who do not challenge their behavior, who turn a blind eye to the harm being done. Part of healing is recognizing these enablers and distancing oneself from them. These individuals may not be directly abusive, but their silence or complicity allows the narcissist to continue their harmful actions. In some cases, it may be necessary to cut ties with these enablers in order to protect one's emotional well-being and create space for true healing. Ultimately, accountability is not about seeking revenge or forcing the narcissist to admit their wrongs. It is about recognizing the importance of personal responsibility, both for the victim and the narcissist. It is about taking control of one's life, refusing to remain a passive participant in a toxic dynamic, and embracing the strength that comes from self-reflection, growth, and healing. Accountability means holding oneself to a higher standard, standing firm in one's own worth, and not allowing anyone to diminish it. It is a key component of moving forward, of stepping into the fullness of one's potential, and of living a life that is free from the shadow of narcissistic abuse. The concept of judgment is often a challenging one to grasp, especially when we are faced with the devastating effects of narcissistic abuse. The emotional scars left by such an experience can make it feel as though the world is unfair and that those who cause harm are allowed to continue without consequences. However, we must understand that divine judgment, while it may not come in the form we expect or within our desired time frame, is inevitable. It is an essential part of God's justice, and it is something that will ultimately restore balance and provide the rightful consequences for the wrongs committed. For those who have endured narcissistic abuse, the idea of judgment can be both a comfort and a challenge. It is comforting because it reassures them that even though the narcissist may escape earthly consequences, they will not escape divine justice. The narcissist may appear to thrive in their cruelty, manipulating others, causing pain, and remaining unaccountable for their actions. But the truth is that no one can outrun the judgment of God. His justice is final, unyielding, and always executed in perfect timing. God sees every hurt, every lie, every manipulation, and every heartache that the narcissist has caused. Though they may seem to prosper for a season, there is no escape from the consequences that are coming. However, while this truth can bring comfort to the victim, it also challenges us to understand that God's judgment is not just about punishing the wrongdoer. It is about restoring what was lost and making things right in his eyes. We may long to see immediate retribution, to watch the narcissist face the consequences of their actions. But God's judgment is not about revenge. It is about righteousness. It is about creating a world where justice reigns, where evil is held accountable, and where those who have been hurt are healed and restored. For the victim, understanding this aspect of divine judgment requires a shift in perspective. It means understanding that God's judgment is not about seeking our personal satisfaction or vengeance. It is about trusting in his perfect plan and timing. We may feel as though the narcissist's actions have gone unnoticed, but nothing is hidden from God's view. He knows the depth of the pain, the manipulation, and the destruction caused. And in his time, he will bring justice to pass in a way that no human court or authority ever could. His judgment will be more thorough, more complete, and more perfect than anything we could imagine. The narcissist may avoid earthly consequences, but they cannot escape the ultimate truth that will be revealed in God's judgment. It is essential to remember that judgment is not just about punishment, it is also about restoration. In the book of Romans, we are reminded that all things work together for good to those who love God. Romans 8:28. While it may seem that the narcissist has won, that they have inflicted untold harm and escaped any repercussions, God is still at work in the lives of those who have been harmed. His judgment includes not only bringing justice to those who have wronged, but also healing and restoring those who have been hurt. This is where the hope lies for the victim of narcissistic abuse. While the narcissist may continue to hurt others for a time, God is working to bring healing to the brokenhearted. The pain may feel insurmountable now, but God's plan is always one of restoration, and his judgment will bring about a future where the victim can find peace, freedom, and joy once again. One of the most powerful aspects of God's judgment is that it is a reflection of his love and mercy. We often view judgment through the lens of anger and wrath, but God's judgment is not arbitrary. It is an extension of his desire for justice, for healing, and for righteousness. It is rooted in his love for those who have been wronged and in his desire to restore what has been taken. The narcissist may attempt to distort the truth, to manipulate situations, and to control their victims, but God's judgment will expose the lies and bring the truth to light. In his perfect wisdom, God knows when the right time is to act, and his justice will bring about a restoration that no human force could ever accomplish. For the narcissist, the prospect of divine judgment should serve as a reminder that no one escapes accountability. In this life, they may use their charm, manipulation, and cruelty to avoid facing the consequences of their actions, but God sees all. His judgment will not be swayed by their power or influence. He will bring them to account for every act of deceit, every manipulation, and every harmful word or deed. There will be no place to hide, no excuse to offer, no defense to make. The judgment of God will be thorough and just. And while this truth may seem difficult to comprehend, it should also bring a sense of peace to the victim who has suffered at the hands of such a person. The narcissist may seem to reign over their world, but ultimately their reign is temporary. God's justice will prevail. This understanding of divine judgment also calls us to reflect on our own actions and the ways we interact with others. While we may not be narcissists ourselves, we must always be mindful of the impact our words and actions have on those around us. We must strive to live with integrity, to honor those who have been entrusted to us, and to be accountable for the harm we may unintentionally cause. In the end, we will all face God's judgment, and it is a sobering reminder to live justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. The judgment that comes will be fair and just, and it is something that we all must one day face. For those who have been victims of narcissistic abuse, it is important to hold on to the hope that God's judgment is coming. While the narcissist may continue their patterns of manipulation, they will not escape the ultimate judgment of God. The victim must trust that God sees their pain, understands their suffering, and is at work in their lives to restore what was broken. Though the process may be difficult, God's justice is a promise that will be fulfilled. In his time, the scales of justice will be balanced and righteousness will prevail. And in that moment, the pain will be replaced with healing, the heartache with peace, and the brokenness with restoration. In conclusion, the journey through narcissistic abuse is one of immense struggle and pain, but it is also a pathway to strength, empowerment, and ultimate healing. Narcissists may try to break you, manipulate you, and control you, but they can never take away your worth, your strength, or your ability to rise above. Through self-love, boundaries, accountability, and the unwavering truth that God's judgment is coming, you have the power to reclaim your life and your peace. Remember, while the narcissist may seem to prosper in their cruelty, God's justice is always at work, and no one escapes the consequences of their actions. Divine judgment will not be delayed forever. It is a promise that will one day restore what has been broken. For the victim, this truth is not just comforting. It is a reminder that your pain is seen, your suffering is acknowledged, and restoration is coming. You do not need to wait for the narcissist's acknowledgement of their wrongs. Your healing, your strength, and your ability to move forward come from within you, supported by the faith that justice will be served in the fullness of God's timing. Rise above the lies, rise above the hurt, and hold your head high, knowing that you are unbreakable. The road to recovery may be long, but with every step, you are reclaiming your worth, your peace, and your future. And though the narcissist may never admit to their wrongdoing, remember this: God sees all, and his judgment will bring true justice, not just for the abuser, but for you, the one who is wronged. Stand firm in your faith, trust in God's perfect justice, and know that healing and restoration await you. You are worthy of all the love, peace, and joy that this world has to offer, and no one can take that away.